Okay, so first up, I'm going to give y'all a tour of the files that are included in the sampler. The first one is a design template for iPhone that includes some various assets. It's in Photoshop format, and that is the program I'm going to be using to edit these files. So if you have a copy of Photoshop CS3 or higher, you can jump into this tutorial with me and go along with the tutorial. If you don't have a copy of CS3 or higher, I would, if you happen to be a student or affiliated with a school or anything like that, I would check into a website. It's called journeyed.com. You can get discounted versions of Photoshop there. It's journeyed, journeyed.com. Okay, and then also I have a document here that specifies all of the screen dimensions for you as well. And this is very important to commit to memory, or at least have on hand, or have it printed out near your desk or something like that, because when you start creating on-screen elements, it's sometimes hard to remember or to visualize on your computer how things are going to look on the phone. And so having these dimensions handy is a good thing, so that you're not constantly having to check on the phone and see how your designs look. Okay? All right, so let's open up the iPhone design template, and I'm just going to give you a quick tour of the file itself and show you how to kind of get around. So what you'll see first is I've got these guides that are giving us some tips on where things should lay out. So when I first started doing design for iPhone, it was all like, basically I came up with all these specs based on Apple's UI specifications, which were not written, and I think they still are not written down at that time, or maybe not even now. But basically, whenever you're laying out this nav bar up here, I was like, well, how far is this button from the edge of the screen, or from the edge of the canvas here? And I had a lot of questions like that. So over time, I built this just database of information around what the standards are with regard to mobile design, and then also put them into a template format so that you're not having to figure it out on your own. I've already done all the research for you. So anyway, that's what the guides are all about and why they're there. Because what happens is, if you start creating new standards within your design, it just takes the user a little bit longer to figure out how to use it. It's not do or die, obviously. There's tons of apps out there that break out of the standard UI. But if you have the basics down, like whenever people are expecting to go back, their thumbs automatically go to the upper left of the screen. You kind of want to have some of these things in place. They're called heuristics, that users are expecting, just so that, you're not breaking so many rules that they're having to relearn how to use their app every time they open it. So we've got the guides, we've got the nav bar. That's what this is called here, in case you're kind of new to the mobile space. This top bar is called the nav bar. The bar above it is called the status bar. That has the time and other elements that are dealing with the phone itself. This is often question whether or not to include the status bar in your application, and it really depends on the type of application that you're building. If your application at all relies on the time of day or the signal that the user is having to tap into to access the data in your app, or if, I don't know, they need to know their battery power. I mean, really it's just a practical question, does your user, while they're within their application, need this information? If they do, leave it in. If they don't, then leave it out. Like, the time in a game may not be as big a deal because people are trying to escape from the time. So anyway, that's the status bar. And at the bottom, we have the tab bar. In the middle here, I'm going to show you how to skin a plain table. That's what this is called. A plain table, or also it's referred to as a list view. Okay, so that's that particular template. I'm going to also open up the screen specs and give you a quick overview of what this is all about. So here what is defined is the dimensions of each of these elements that I just showed you in this file right here. So if you went in and created a nav bar that was 48 pixels tall, you will get a call from your developer. That's, you know, assuming you're not creating something that is completely custom. You know, the developers want to work with graphics that fit into the standard interface builder templates. You know, so if you give them like a 48 pixel tall nav bar, you're going to get some questions about that. So, and a lot of this has to do with budget. Like, you can create the most custom look you want, and it can do anything. I mean, the possibilities are limitless, but it all comes down to how much do you want to pay for development? How much do you want to pay for a custom UI? And that's the things that you have to consider whenever you start breaking out of these specifications here. So the width of this is 320 pixels. The height from top to bottom is 480. And you can see the rest of the specs here. What I'll say here about this, these two buttons here is, so these are referred to as tappable targets, whether it's a button or anything else on the screen that a user taps on. You have to be aware of, you know, just the physicality of these applications and device, really, because, you know, some people are more fat-fingered than others. You know, you've got men's hands who are often, you know, larger than a child's hand or whatever. And so depending on, well, not depending on anything, there are standards with regard to tappable targets, and that's what these dimensions right here define. So for the tab bar, the spec is a minimum of 30 by 30 pixels. And for the nav bar, it's 20 by 20. Another thing to consider whenever you're laying things out is a spacing between tappable targets, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so that's a tour of the files. The next thing we're going to jump into is how to customize the tab bar. Okay, see you in a minute.